I've been saying it for years. Grading is a scam. We're going to talk about why that might be the case coming up next on the Ungraded Truth podcast. Detective Comics set a record for 1.8 million. Nobody really cares.
Who are annoyed that people are asking them questions, is this book banned? That question didn't exist a year ago.
Somebody's submitting like 25 vintage books and getting 15 9.9s.
We always think, how can it ever get crazier? And then it always does.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the #1 collectible show in the universe, The Ungraded Truth. I am joined, as always, by my co-hosts, Manu of the 99 Newsstand, Rob, Neil Cardin Comics, and Ryan, Automatic Comics. Gentlemen, we got a big show tonight because we are going to be talking about what everyone has been saying for years, that grading is a scam. How excited are you guys for our show?
I'm actually really excited about this conversation because it's such an interesting one and it's such an important one, and there's so many opinions here. I'm excited about it.
I'm glad to see it's true.
Ryan, you're going out of order. What are you doing?
I'm sorry.
We always go around the box.
I was prepared.
Messing things up 30 seconds in.
I love it. Neil's animated tonight. I just seen his arm. I've never seen Neil's arm before.
Have we ever seen a hand in the video?
Holy shit.
I've had a long day. I've been at a card show for the last 2 days. I had a 4-hour drive home to get home in time for this. So it's been a wild 24 hours for me.
That's cool.
Very nice.
Yeah, I'm excited about it. Like, I mean, I think like Neo has said, it's always the tough thing where it's like, is it a scam or is it just because it's someone's opinion? But yeah, that's what we'll talk about.
Yeah. Well, we're definitely going to be talking about that, but that's not the only topic that we're going to come across this evening. We got PSA versus CGC Superman sales to talk about. We got Manga going to the moon. We got One Piece going to zero. We got other conversations within the damaged Reholder Pokemon card market. So we got a lot to talk about. But before we really get into it, we have to do a little bit of housekeeping. Of course, guys, the Ungraded Truth YouTube channel deserves your subscription. Okay, we are currently at 1,250 subscribers. Nobody said we could do it. Everybody told me when we started this thing that there's no way that you were going to get to 1,250 subscribers. Maybe 1,249, but not 250. So very, very proud of that. But if you haven't yet subscribed to the channel, head on over to the description, hop over here, and maybe more importantly, go into the description right here of the channel, open up the Spotify page, and come over and listen to the Ungraded Truth on Spotify or your favorite RSS feed. You know, we currently have 17 5-star reviews. I mean, last week we were at like 13 5-star reviews. So we're going up. We're like 5xing every single show. So help us get to 20 in the next episode. And I'd appreciate that. Also, you know, this is a co-stream across all of our channels. You know, we got a live stream on Neo's channel right now, Ryan's channel, on Neo's X, my channel, the Ungraded Truth YouTube channel. So if you are viewing on one of those various streams, be sure to head on over to the description and sub up all the other guys that are on the show tonight, because, you know, they come here, they give their valuable insights into the market, into collectibles topics, and we got to support them and me. So that's my little spiel. All right, guys. Well, let's not bury the lead anymore. We have to talk about our main topic, which was, of course, the video that came out of the Market Movers YouTube channel done by Teapots. Now, if you guys don't know about this story, basically Teapots sent in 2 of the exact same cards to every single grading company to see what the differences would be. As you guys can see from his post here on Instagram, I graded this card 9 times and the results are crazy. We're not going to actually play through the entire video. We'll just kind of do a little bit of a recap, but suffice to say, you can see from this image that he took the Ken Griffey card as well as the Mewtwo Pokemon card, sent it to all the various grading companies, and the results were very different. To say the least, which obviously caused a huge discussion and uproar within the community. The Never Slabbers have been dancing in the streets, celebrating this one, saying that grading is in fact a scam. Rob, let me kick it over to you. You covered this topic earlier this week. Is grading a scam? And did we all really want to know?
You definitely don't really want to know. It's not a scam, but it is definitely paying for someone's opinion, and the sooner people realize that, the better. because that was a wild ride that card went on. My question actually back to you is, do you think if you did a similar experiment with like a 9.6 book, how would the results come back out on that? I guess it's a little trickier in comics because of the whole cleaning and pressing angle and all that. But like, how, if you sent the same book in like 8 different times, you guys have less grading companies too, so that's a little tricky. But if you just sent it around everywhere like 3 different times, what do you think your grade range variance would be?
Well, I mean, kind of one way to look at that was that in that submission that he did, PSA came back both a 6 and an 8, I think.
Yes.
And so just
and
within PSA,
Beckett came back both a 9.5 and an altered.
And trimmed. Yeah, and trimmed. So that's probably worse, I guess. But I think like my thought on this has been that because, and this isn't even like a modern card, you could maybe kind of call it one, but it's still like what, like 30 years old, 35 years old.
Yeah.
But like, because cards live in this range generally of like 8 to 10, you know, I mean, they just live up there, and the variance between a 6, a 7, an 8, a 9, and a 10 is really very small. And so to me, it's like if you had a comic and you were living entirely in the range of 9.4 to a 10, and every time you submit, you 100% you could get a different grade. If you're getting a 9.8 one time, you could get a 9.6, you could get a 9.4, a blue moon chance, you get a 9.9, you know, something like that. And so that's why I think if you're comparing the cards to comics, the way you really have to compare it is just a very high grade comic. That's the only place that you really do have, I feel like, that even comparison, because that's where you have like, it's like 1 spine tick or 2 spine ticks. Whereas in like a card, maybe it's like a little whitening on 1 corner or a little whitening on 2 corners. Like that's kind of how I view it.
What do you think about this, Manu?
I agree with. So this was incredible. Like you know what Teapot did and the variance that he found from these grading companies. But I feel like my gut kind of says that with comic books, we might experience a bit less variance. It depends on the book, of course, but because we're not really going to, with a modern book, run into as often as you would in a card, the whole trimmed or too big, right? Because that was something that Teapot ran into as well. Like I think one of the grading companies, it was Tag, that said the card was too large to be encapsulated, like implying, I don't know. Sometimes I've heard that being related to if a card has been trimmed and then it gets flattened, like to make it the appropriate size again. I think that's something that happens in the card world. Sometimes they flatten it too much and it gets a little larger than it was intended to be. So maybe that is some sort of an indication of trimming, but one grading company found it to be too large. One grading company found it to be trimmed. And then you had this grade range again from a 9.5 to a 6. It, of course, started as the Beckett 9.5, which is a gem mint, right? So you're looking at what you would think is this near perfect card, and this card travels to all these grading companies and gets an altered grade, a trimmed grade, a we won't encapsulate it, a 6, an 8, and all of these things. It's kind of wild. It's hard for me to imagine that in sort of like a Copper Age book or a modern book that we'd run into the same thing, but it's absolutely true. You run into these differences. You know, Ryan gave the example of, you know, maybe you get a blue moon shot at a 9.9. I don't personally think a book that, well, I don't think he was talking about what I'm about to mention, so I'm not relating it to what he said, but I don't think you get a 9.9 and then a 9.4, submit a 9.4 and accidentally, and maybe by chance get a 9.9. A 9.9 is still, you know, relatively easy to differentiate from a 9.4, where a 9.4 might have, you know, could have 6 or 7 spine breaks on it, spine ticks on it, color breaking spine ticks, if that's the reason that it got that 9.4. But what he said's absolutely right. You know, you could put in a 9.4 again and get a 9.8. It happens all the time. I talk to friends that, you know, graders sometimes even look at an imperfection as a factory flaw and sometimes grade against it. But from my personal experience, yes, I've definitely submitted books and disagreed with the grades, but I've never myself submitted a book and got something appalling. Like I never submitted something that I anticipated a 9.8 on and got an 8.0 or something, right? To me, that would be like, what the, you know, what happened here? So I've never personally had that experience, and I can't imagine you just go by a 6 and then it comes back a 9.4 or something like that, right? So I feel like it's probably a little bit more common on the cards, or that, and I can't quantify as to why, but that's kind of like what I think about that.
If you want to get like 300,000, views on YouTube do the same experiment with comics. 'Cause that
Actually, it
video
should. We
went
should.
nuts.
We don't have 9 grading companies or 7, but as you said. we
No,
don't
but
have,
you
like,
could
that
send
many.
it to PSA twice. You could send it to CGC 2 or 3 times. You can probably don't want to send it to CBCS.
It'd be such an expensive video to make. That's the problem. You're
You
just like,
you get like 500. I think that video.
there's no
had,
way
like,
you're getting that many
400,000
views. You like on comics, you probably get like 20 or 30,000 and cover like 2 of your grading submissions, and then you're because I feel like
Well,
you'd
let's-
have to like
Tax write-off,
fast
Ryan.
track
Tax
it, you
write-off.
know.
Well, let me double click on that, Rob, because there are videos that exist on YouTube of people within the comic space doing that type of thing before. Similarly, I think that there's videos of people in the card space that have done stuff like this before.
I don't-
This one being out of Jeff Wilson's Market Movers, like YouTube, like being kind of the authority voice within the collecting sports card world, I feel like is really why this story took so much caught on fire. So I don't know if it's like anything that people haven't really just already thought, in terms of like what the differences of these companies. And I feel like, looking ahead to some of the other things that I want to talk about is, do you feel like this changes anything within the grading community? Do you think that remember we talked about some of the PSA 9s going to 10s, and you made mention of the fact that like, oh, this could be a real bad PR move for them. Is this a bad PR for the grading companies? I mean, maybe talk about that aspect.
I want to jump in on that real quick, because I really Jeff and Teapot did a recap on this, right? And it's a brilliant video to watch. I don't know the title of the video, but in the first 15 minutes, they cover this, and they cover it beautifully. So I certainly recommend watching that. And Jeff and Teapot both, sort of agree, sort of overlap in their opinions, but also disagree, but very respectfully. And I agree with both of them to a certain extent, but I really love what both of them said. And so I'm just regurgitating because I agree. I could say it for myself, but I would rather give them the credit, where this is an idea and a thought that people in the grading and collecting community have had for a long time. That grading is subjective, it's a crapshoot, so on and so forth. This isn't the first time we've come across this. It's the first time that such an extensive experiment has done so well in its virality, right? Going to so many different grading companies and getting such a wide array of results. Like, it was a fantastic experiment. And even Teapot said, this wasn't to prove that grading companies are a scam, and he doesn't personally use the word scam. It's to kind of just prove the subjectivity of it and kind of put a spotlight on, or give us a reason to think about, why do we put such value on an opinion? Because what's being provided is in fact an opinion. And that's not for us to say that's, we're paying for the opinion. It's up to them to give us what their thought is on it. Why do we put so much value on it, given that we know it could be different when you resubmit, right? And he made an interesting point. He said grading companies are kind of leaning on the fact that you might resubmit the same card to them if you disagree, and it might fall within that range. And we all kind of anticipate that. No one anticipates someone to fast track a card to all of these grading companies. And Teapot went on to explore the idea of what he deems to be the way to give value for his personal collecting and his beliefs to a card. And it's the significance of the card itself, and that the grade should play into it, but not as aggressively or dramatically as it does in our world. And I'll add a little bit to what I said about comic books. Even though I don't think a 6.0 would come back a 9.4, you still have these huge price gaps in some books just between a 9.6 and a 9.8. And it feels very unfair if you know your book to be a 9.8 and it's 10,000 and a 9.8, you get a 9.6 back and it's $1,500, right? And that price gap is enough for even that single jump in grade to really be a point of frustration, where Jeff jumps in then and says, Teapot, I really appreciate what you said, but Jeff puts value on that sort of idea of this is the 10, especially if the 10 is the pop one. And I agree with that as well. Like, that's something that's very cool to me. You give the Malibu Sun that was just sold out of my collection as an example. Yes, to my eyes, of course, I recognize it to be a better looking book than every other Malibu I've ever sold. So I can identify it to be that condition, but putting that 10 on it is that point of pride. That's that trophy. That's how you actually get that value out of it. So I'm on both teams there. I understand both perspectives, but they did a beautiful job illustrating that. So I agree. This isn't so much about, is it a scam? It's more about us sort of analyzing our beliefs on it and why we put so much value on incremental, sometimes unnoticeable differences. And is that okay? Is that great? Does that ever change? I don't know. I think you have both camps, and I think both camps are going to exist. And I'm kind of in the middle. I don't know if it changes. This conversation has been going on for a long time.
Well, and to kind of go with your comment about like a 6 versus a 9.4, that's what I'm saying. Like when you're comparing cards to comics, you can't go into the lower grades for comics because it really isn't a comparison. Like,
I see, yeah.
Because, and it's also, I think the big reason is that in comics, yeah, in the mid grades, the lower grades, you may send in 10 times and you get a 5.5, say 5 of the times, a 5.0 3 of the times, and a 6.2 of the times, something like that. But the value difference there is probably not that much, unless it's some huge mega grail or something like that. But when you get up into that 9.4, 9.6, 9.8 range, the value difference can jump very significantly. And that's why I think that's where you get really similar comparisons to something like a 10, a 9, and an 8. Or like, I mean, like a 6 is effectively worthless in a modern card. Yeah. But the fact that it seems you could potentially resubmit a 6 and get a 9 or a 10 is wild. I mean,
I've resubmitted a PSA 6 and got a PSA 10.
Yeah, well, and I saw a video from like that somebody had shared recently from like 3 years ago about one of those Munch Pikachus, like the ones where it's like the screaming face Pikachu, where they had gotten 2 PSA 5s on their submission and they sent them back in and got a 9 and a 10. You know, that's many thousands of dollars difference in value. And so it's just that kind of stuff. It just like, I think it's because with cards, the other thing with cards is like, there's so much in terms of like minutia that goes into it where, you know, you have if it's off center, like the off center conversation doesn't go with comics unless it's extremely like a huge misrap, like off center doesn't matter. Yeah. And so, whereas with cards, you have little things like off center that can be a huge deal, like a tiny little dent or a tiny little scratch, or like, I think, you know, if it's production or not, or whatever, like there's just the minutia of cards makes it so that you can have so many cases like this. And I wonder if I think the bigger impact that might come from this is people are going to be hunting more maybe for those 6s to look at what they can flip into a 9 or a 10 and just like gamble on the resubs, ones that have huge price gaps. Like that's what you'd be looking for, is that those books that have big price gaps between like a 6 and a 9 or 6 and a 10.
So the problem with cards though is that no dealer in their right mind is going to put a PSA 6 in their case. They'll just crack it and sell it raw.
I mean, you probably buy it on eBay or something. That's kind of where you.
No person getting a PSA sub back. I shouldn't say no. It's not like comics though, where you're just going to throw that up there. They will 100% just crack it out and sell it raw because it'll sell for way more raw. Like they will just crack that thing out.
And I saw a comment. I saw a comment in there in the comment section too about people paying a lot more for raws versus like a 9 even.
Yeah, that happens all the time.
Yeah, and so yeah.
To Manu's point about the value thing, I think there's a next level to go into that. It's not so much the value gap between like a 10, a 9, an 8, and a 7. And this isn't going to change, I don't think anyway. But the other thing I think it exposes is like, why is there a value gap between the companies? Like, why is a CGC 9.8 and a PSA 9.8 have a 40% difference or whatever it is? Why does a PSA 10 sell for way more than a BGS 9.5 or a CGC 10 or an SGC 10? Like, you know, Manu talked about it in the same, like dropping down grades. But when you start going, the differences cross companies, like one thing that this experiment proved is that it's like, you're just paying for everyone's opinion. They're all just people putting a number on a piece of paper. Like, why is one piece of paper?
Because it matches the rest of your collection.
But you know, it's so amazing. Oh yeah, sorry. Go.
Well, no, go ahead, because I think I'm gonna continue with the conversation, but I might take a different path. So
okay,
please.
This is very short. It's just another bit from that video that Teapot and Jeff did. And people have said this, but it's so funny because this value that gets applied to this item, sometimes tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, even if it's just hundreds of dollars, it's 30 seconds that someone's looking at the card and giving it the grade. You know, that it's a 7 versus it's a 10 is literally what the person identifies or deems it to be in 30 seconds. It's a little ridiculous. That's all I wanted to say. It's kind of hilarious.
And I could see like one company having a huge, let me rephrase. I could see a company having a premium over others. I think the premium gap is too wide right now.
I can agree with that.
All right. So one thing that I wanted to kind of bring up in digesting the story and watching the videos and thinking about all this stuff is, you know, there's one aspect here that I felt like I haven't heard anyone sort of talk about, and I wanted to bring it up here. And, you know, a little bit of a caveat here, guys. This is the ungraded truth. But sometimes when you speak the truth, that doesn't mean that it's going to be what everybody wants to hear.
No.
But when I watch this video, and shout out to T-Pod and Jeff, and I'm a fan of those guys and what they do. But when I watched this video, to me, I just was like, this doesn't prove anything to me. Because all it showed me was that different companies grade differently. But no company has ever said that our grading standard should apply across every single other grading company's standard. Every grading company has their own grading standard. So the only real test that should ever be applied is if you sent the same card to the same company multiple times, is that card hitting that grade? That's the only thing. I don't care. Like if one other company calls this card a 1 and one company calls this card a 10, what does that mean to me? It just means that their own grading standards are different. But the only thing that matters is consistency within the own company. And, you know, if anything, I kind of felt like this video made PSA look pretty decent because they went from a 6 to an 8. And then in their Mewtwo card, they went from an 8 to a 7.
Yeah.
The company to me that looked really bad was Beckett, who went from a 9.5 to an authenticated, and even SGC that went from authenticated to a 9. So those were my little takeaways. But to me, like a more interesting experiment would have been to take the Ken Griffey card and the Mewtwo card and literally send it to PSA like 20 times and just be like, I sent this card in 20 times. Here was the variance. But I don't know what you guys think about that. Like to me, like everyone's like, oh, the grading is so inconsistent. It's like, yeah, everyone has their own grading standard. Why did we think that they didn't?
I like that you bring that up, and I'm glad that you went back to the Beckett thing because I raised my hand in the middle. I was like, but Swag, in this experiment, the card began, and correct me where I'm wrong, the card began as a Beckett Gem Mint 9.5, and then Beckett regraded it as altered. Or was it altered? Was it trimmed?
It's trimmed. I think it was also trimmed. Yeah.
And
Yeah,
so,
it was also
so
trimmed.
that
Beckett was
so,
also trimmed.
yeah. So speaking to that, I was like, but then you doubled back and you covered that as well. So it definitely shows a little bit of inconsistency between the companies as well. And I agree with what you're saying about the grading standards somewhat, but maybe I'm wrong at this, and I would love to hear what Rob and Ryan have to say. I have perceived it as though they do try to adhere to a very similar standard, like a gem mint is a gem mint, a near mint minus is a near mint minus, like that kind of.
Well, it's
like
interesting. We're soon going to talk about a Superman where maybe that's not the case. But I'm sorry.
I mean,
I like it.
It's tricky with Beckett because like Beckett alone has subgrades.
Yeah.
And they have a black label 10, which is a perfect card. Then they have a pristine 10, which is 3 10s and a 9.5. Then they have the Gem Mint 9.5, but even in that, there's True Gems, Min Gems Plus, True Gems Plus, True Gem Plus Pluses. Now, some of that's lingo the hobby created on their own.
Right.
But like even in a Beckett 9.5, there's a ton of variance. Like a Beckett 9.5 Min Gem will sell for almost PSA 9 prices, in some cases right at PSA 9 prices, where a Beckett True Gem or True Gem Plus will sell for a lot more. Won't sell for PSA 10 prices, but you'll get a huge premium over a Min Gem 9.5. So it's so tricky, even in Beckett, like how their standards, because of the subgrades, they're basically grading the card 4 times.
Mm.
That one gets super tricky. And then Tag is, you know, whatever robot nonsense that they have going on down there. CGC and Beckett, though CGC doesn't use subgrades, they probably have similar standards to Beckett because Beckett's former head grader spun up CGC. So I'm guessing he brought a lot of like their grading standards with him to some degree or another. And then same thing with SGC and CGC both. They have a 9.5 grade. PSA doesn't. So that throws a wrinkle into like where you're, you know, when PSA is grading a card, if it's in between, what do they use to determine whether it goes to a 9 or a 10? CGC, you could be like, oh, we could just give it a 9.5.
Yeah, you make a good point about, and you make a really good point about PSA's 10 being their top grade, because obviously Beckett has the Gem Mint, which has the subgrades, so collectors do differentiate between this, you know, even Gem Mints, and PSA, of course, their 10 can encompass imperfections, right? Because a presumably a card that might be a black label or a pristine at Beckett would just be a Gem Mint PSA 10, and a card that would be a 9.5 at Beckett would just be a Gem Mint PSA 10. I mean, we've all seen PSA 10s with white on the edges. We've all seen PSA 10s with an imperfection. It encompasses quite a bit before it drops down to a 9. So that's actually, going to Swag's point, an ideology and a standard at PSA, which does greatly separate it from Beckett. So Swag, you're absolutely right there.
I just thought it was interesting. I mean, you know, I do think that it definitely makes a lot of the companies look bad, you know, that it's so inconsistent across the companies. But again, I still sort of stand by, and maybe you guys are thinking that I'm being a grading shill here. I'm just trying to like really, I think for me, I just have like a different expectation of what I think about grading companies. And it's me being, you know, very cynical over the years of like this concept of this perfect grading company and this standard that exists ubiquitously. It just it's not possible until maybe, you know, Tag really does become, you know, some supercomputer that can grade everything perfectly. But it doesn't really seem like we're going to get that. And yeah, I think,
and I mean, and the reality is Tag is as inconsistent as any other human like grading company. Like I've seen plenty of videos, people resubmitting to Tag and getting grades all over the place, flaws it sees one time, it doesn't see the next time. Like Tag is just as trash right now. And it's
not ready yet.
It's like maybe it'll get there, but it seems like what people have said is it really struggles with like surface type defects, like scratches and that kind of thing. And I mean, you need to be able to do all of it. You can't just have some of it.
You know, one thing about that too, Ryan, is like with the inconsistencies. I mean, it has to be said that things can happen to a card every single time you crack it out and send it into a new company. Like, granted, it doesn't always explain why a card would be resent and get a higher grade. But if we're to take the Ken Griffey as it started, a Beckett 9.5, I mean, I don't really know if Teapot like explained exactly, you know, but forgive me if I am misunderstanding this, but my understanding is that that card was in there for a long time. I mean, who knows? Like maybe it was a 9.5 at one point, got rattled around and shaken and blunted corners and things of that nature. I'm just, you know,
I'm
like
less likely to
Pokemon
happen.
card.
Be less likely to happen in a Beckett slab because Beckett has an inner sleeve.
Yeah, they don't wiggle.
I'm
as
just-
much in it.
And I know, like he said, he thought he damaged. He was like, "Did I damage the card?" When he got the
did
6
in the
back
video.
from PSA, and then he sent it in again, and it got like an 8 from them, and then I think one of the 9s. He's like, "Oh, I guess not." Like, and so he was worried that maybe he had caused the problem. But I mean, but yeah, that is always a risk when you crack something out.
Yeah, it doesn't quite explain it. The reason I just bring it up is it's just like it's a small sample size that's very, very effective at telling the point, which I still think is true. That it's like, yeah, it's very inconsistent cross grading companies. Also, should we really be paying, you know, the premiums that we're paying, you know, on one company versus the other, or this number versus this number? I think it opens up that question. I kind of fall to what you said, Manu, and even what Jeff Wilson said, you know, in his breakdown, where I kind of do think that, like, you know, the number is still just the number, like, and that's why it's the value, because yeah, a company said it was, and everyone's just kind
its
of
own collectible encapsulated in the thing.
Totally. It got assigned that, and we all said it was, and we joke about it. You know, we say like, well, why is this a 9.8? Because the number says 9.8. I mean, like at that point, it just is, you know, and I don't know, like you're just not going to change people's behavior, I guess, is my thought process on that.
That's actually been some of my favorite comment like sections in the CGC comics group, like our CGC comic fans group that's on the subreddit, where that's one of the few places you'll actually see people defend CGC, and where somebody will come in and they're like, is this really a 9.8? And they're like, it says 9.8. Like, what do you want? Like, they graded it. You know, it's like, if you don't want their opinion, don't buy that book. You know, and I agree with, like, there's sometimes when you can tell a book has been damaged inside,
right?
Like it's shifted around or whatever. But if it's got like a spine tick or whatever, and you don't like a spine tick in a 9.8,
then don't buy that one.
You know, don't buy that book.
Yeah. Spine ticks happen on 9.8s. Like, it's part of the criteria. Absolutely.
Yeah. I want to hit something in chat real quick. Someone mentioned about tag gets better every day because it's machine, like the model is learning every single day. In my opinion, that's a flaw, not a feature. Because if the model is changing every single time it grades a card and slowly adapting over time, then what does that mean for everything it graded for the last 3 years?
It means resubmit it. That's what it means. It means
Yeah,
send it
yeah.
back.
Unless
The
you got
whole
a high
point,
grade.
though, the whole
Keep those.
selling feature is that it's like repeatable over and over and over again. But if the model is constantly shifting, like if what that person said is true, and it makes sense, like the model would learn, then it's not grading the same as it was previously. So it's like it kills the entire system. A tag card graded 3 years ago would be graded under completely different standards today under their little robot system.
I think to Manu's point, I think
to be
Tag
fair,
is looking
so
at
is-
like
so
this
are
is a
PSA
feature.
cards since they changed their standard on
Right.
centering. So,
They didn't change their standard.
yeah.
They clarified their standard.
They clarified their standard. Yeah.
You know what's funny about this though is it's just like, do you think that this video overall, like secretly, like behind closed doors with all the grading companies, are they just like, honestly, this is actually pretty good PR because this is going to make people resubmit everything.
I
That's
mean,
an interesting. That's a nice spin.
potentially, I
It's possible.
guess.
If you've got a 6 and you can't see anything wrong with it, you might be sending it back in.
or if it has like some type of like small indentation or whatever, they're like, oh, maybe the next guy in his 30 seconds will miss it. You
Look,
know,
man,
and that's
there-
the method you go with.
And to that point, there's a card over here. I'm not going to pull the card out, and I got a 9 on it. And in a 9, it's about $1,100. In a 10, it's about $12,000. And when I submitted it, I thought it had a shot at a 10. When it came back, I still scrutinized it when I submitted it, but even if I thought it was only going to be a 9, I still would have submitted it. It's still a valuable card. But when it came back, in the case, of course, I haven't cracked it out. I scrutinized it, and I found a little speck, a little flake of like a little speck on the card. I found it, and I thought to myself, that's probably why it's a 9. But part of me is thinking, if I send this thing in again, will that speck maybe not be noticed?
Well, you probably
get
covered
the
it with whiteout
12,000?
before you sent it back in.
Well,
But
I mean,
it's-
I've had multiple people comment in my, like there was one guy that's commented in a few of my videos about this where I think he had an Amazing Spider-Man 129 9.8 that I believe he said he submitted 6 times before he
Wow.
got the 9.8. You know, and we know Chris, Vancouver Comic Junkie, he's talked about it. He submitted his
Oh, yeah.
G.I. Joe 21 like I don't even know how many times. I think at least 6.
That's
It's
the
not more than
silent
that.
issue.
To get his 9.8. You know, it's like people do it. Like if the value is there and it's close enough, like now the risk is like I've also heard, I remember there was another channel I watched where a guy was sending in like it was a cap 1 or it was or Avengers 4 or something like that. And he kept sending it in and kept getting lower grades every time. And it was likely because maybe just, you know, repressing it because that's one of the big differences with comics versus cards. You almost need to repress with a comic, and you're risking damage every time you do that. Whereas with a card, I imagine that's not really something you're doing too often. You're just cracking it out and sending it back in as is.
Oh, let me bring this up. Sorry, I keep doing.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
This is for Ryan. This is for everyone. But Ryan, maybe you have an opinion on this. Color touch gets missed a lot on comic books, and I know that from experience because I have sold raw books with color touch on it, and the people submit them and get blue labels. And what do we make of that? Like, if you know you submitted a book with color touch, once it's got a blue, I mean, like I get it. Once it's a blue label, it's a blue label. But I know it has color touch. I sold it, right?
If
that
you
gets
know
missed
it
a
has
lot.
color touch, then and you got a blue label, I do not agree with you keeping it a blue label.
I know. I sold it raw, right?
Yeah,
It's someone
right. I
else's
know,
blue
but like
label.
I'm saying, if somebody does, it's because it goes back to that. There was
If
that
they
suspense.
crack it out, if they do something, what happens then, right?
Well,
Yeah.
exactly, like that Suspense 3. That was, you know, that was a big like problem book like 3 or 4 years ago, where it was on Heritage and it was as a 1.0 or a 1.5 blue label, and people noticed that it was previously a 0.5 incomplete CBCS book, like the cover, and they're like, oh, somebody must have married a piece in, and it got missed, and so like the person who did it's like the question is you don't know where it happened.
I'm
You
gonna
know,
answer this
like
Glenn.
where at some point somebody added that in, and it was it that person added it in and sent it to CGC? Did they sell it to someone else as complete and not tell them they married anything? Like you don't know where it happened, but like that's the type of stuff where like I feel like if you send something in and it gets something it doesn't deserve in terms of married components or color touch or whatever, I think it's your obligation to send it back in. And I know a lot of people don't agree with that, but I don't care. Like, I think
No, I love that
because my
personal
problem
standard.
is that then if you sell it and someone else is like, oh, I'm going to get this signed, whatever it is, and it sends it in, now it comes back and it's like they catch it as married this time. Like you could see that happening with like an ASM 238 with the tattoos. Somebody sends it back in to get signed, and now it comes back as a married. And now you're the one that got shafted. And so, like, that's my problem, is that then potentially screws someone down the line.
100%. And I'm going to answer Eggplant's question here. He's not asking me, it's general, but I'm going to give my example to tell him, to tell everyone. But, and that's my problem with what you're saying. And that's my problem with overgraded books, right? Sometimes, like we've illustrated with the 316, sometimes it's a submission swap and encapsulation. The 9.2 gets the 9.8 and vice versa. If you sell on that 9.8 with the 9.2 in it, and someone less experienced, less detail oriented, Todd McFarlane signing comes up, they submit it, well, they're going to get a 9.2 back with the Todd signature that they had previously bought as a 9.8.
For damaging it.
or they'll blame Todd for damaging it, right? And recently on eBay, I saw a Spawn 1 newsstand being sold for a couple $100 less than what it would go for. And the seller, I didn't look into it. It might have been a swap in the submission. I just saw it and I just like, here goes another one. And the seller was like, yo, this thing's got 7 spine ticks on it. It did. It was ugly. And it sold. It sold for $400 and something, which is maybe $150 less than it would have, but like $300 more than if it was a 9.6, right? And it's like, well, if you, that's just shitty to me. In any case, the seller didn't do anything wrong. Whoever bought it, again, I question the motive there. So Eggplant asked, how would you know if it had color touch if you didn't put the color touch on yourself? There's multiple ways to answer this. One, you could check for color touch and recognize that it has color touch. But and he's not asking me, it's general. But in my experience, what had happened was the Acclaim Maximum Carnage book. Some people know this book. Dope book. It was a promotional book that was given out to pre-orderers of the 1994 video game. It's manufactured by Marvel, of course, but it's a very thin sort of book, and it's cheaply manufactured. In any case, a couple of years ago, someone had a bunch of raw copies, and I bought many of them, and they were very high-grade books. I got 9.8s out of it, I got 9.6s out of it, and one of the 9.6s that I submitted, out of the first 5 that I sent in, I got no 9.8s out of the first 5. I got 4 9.6s, and one was a purple label. And I thought, what the hell? These are like uncirculated copies, presumably, right? Like, why is this a purple label? So I went ahead and examined the hell out of this book. And all of these copies almost had the same 2 spine ticks on the top right on the back. Anyone that's familiar with the Acclaim Maximum Carnage is going to be familiar with at least one of these spine ticks. It's notorious. They're almost always there. And sometimes they're coupled. Sometimes it's 2 of them. And on that purple label, I identified very clearly, once I knew to look for it, that there was Sharpie. Like sloppily done right by the color touch, not even done so well that, on the tick, not even done so well that it actually filled in the tick. It was kind of like just sloppily done. So it made me think that there were probably 20 or 30 copies with that damage, and someone was like, fix, right? And that's what it seemed like. And so then I hadn't graded all of them yet. And so I went through the other copies that I still had, identified one copy that had the same Sharpie markers on it, sold it on my Instagram story as a book with color touch. Well, the person that bought it still submitted it and got a blue label. That's how I know that book had color touch, because my copy got a purple label. I went ahead and investigated, found it on this particular copy out of 15 or 20 copies I'm talking about, and sold it with color touch. That's how you would know. You would have to either know to look for it or look for it.
There you go. Well, before we kind of move on to our next topic here, do we have anything else, final thoughts with this market movers video? Any other things that we didn't cover? Throw it out to the panel here.
I don't have anything else to add.
No, I think it's a great topic. I think it's cool.
I will say, just to kind of put something on it, I did hear, that, the tag had said that this card was oversized. And then SGC had also said that it had evidence of trimming. And a lot of the conversation was, how is it possible that a card could be trimmed, but then also be oversized? I did hear people kind of explain that, when people kind of press cards, that's actually how they trim it. So there could have been a reasonable explanation for that of like, oh, you know, it actually was trimmed, but then it was flattened to like actually get back to the size, and maybe they flattened it too much. I don't know, just something to think about.
I mean, I guess I didn't know with that one because I know Tag has some problems with vintage stuff anyway, older stuff anyway. Is it possible that that card just doesn't fit in their holder? Like it's just a little too big. I didn't know if maybe I haven't looked in this. I don't care enough.
All the time, so
okay.
I shouldn't say all the time, but they have graded 89 Griffies, so that's their cutoff. Actually, I think that's the last year that they grade.
All right. Well, that says that, you know, let's move on to our next topic here. And we have to talk about a crazy sale that happened this past week. Over on Golden Auctions, we had a Superman 1 in a PSA 1.0 sell for $176,000, the all-time highest public sale for this comic. Now, that would be a story in and of itself, except what makes it really interesting is that the next day on Heritage Auctions, on their Platinum auction, they had a Superman 1 in a CGC 1.0 that went up for sale and sold for $84,000. I have the wrong picture in front of you guys. Don't worry.
I was going to say, that is not the right book.
That is not the right book. I will fix this. Hold on. But very interesting sale regardless.
Do it live.
You know, yeah, we're going to do it live, and I'm going to pick it up for the stream. You know, guys, some of the benefits of watching the live show, as you guys are all watching tonight, is that you get to have these minor imperfections in the production of the show that actually happen. But if you go over to Spotify, if you don't like me messing up and showing the wrong book, I'll edit this out and make you guys none the wiser. Over on Heritage, we actually had a CGC 1.0 with a missing corner that sold for $88,000. So the same book in the same grade, two different companies, two different auction houses, getting different drastic numbers, 88,000 compared to twice as much on Golden, 176,000, PSA straight mogging on CGC. Guys, what do you think about the discrepancy between these two books?
So, I mean, yeah, I commented on this on kind of like my recap video on this auction as well, that it was a very surprising gap. I'll kind of say that. I mean, for one thing, because low grade Superman 1s have generally been trending down. Like we joke about like how often we see Batman 1 and Superman 1 pop up in auctions, and like it's because it's these low grade books between like a 0.5 and maybe a 1.5 or a 2. And it's like almost every single auction has at least one, if not more than one. And it just felt like it was maybe kind of overflowing the market, and you're just having the price trend just kind of trickle down. And so I think for the Heritage one, I had it going for like 95. That was my estimate. Went for like whatever it was, 80. What was it? 88, 450 or something like that. And yeah. And so it was a little weak, but around what I would expect. That's why it's so surprising to see the one on Golden, because like it said there, it was not only double this price, it was the record ever for a 1. Like it is a better looking book. Like, I mean, you have to give it that, but there are other very nice looking 1.0s that have sold for significantly less than this relatively recently.
Did they have a Netflix show around them?
Yeah. Well, and that's always the question, you know, it's like, is that what this is? Like, is it just like uninformed people that just have too much money and just throwing it up there? I mean, it's possible. I mean, that's, you know, that's probably what it is, but it's just like, it's a pretty wild sale for it beat the record by like 20%. I mean, this it wasn't like the record was 170 and it went for 176. The record was like 141 or something. And so this was a big, big record. And yeah, it's a surprise to see, especially because like, I'll say like generally in other in other books, PSA is selling for less. So that's why I mean, it's a little bit of a surprise there, but yeah, I mean, also given the fact that this sale happened after this 88,000, you'd think like that other sale would be in people's minds and, you know, it would impact the bidding or the price, but just didn't. And so like, but the other thing I know we've talked about some is like, is this just a result of Golden just doing a better job advertising? You know, like, is that what this is becoming? And Heritage needs to step up their game a little bit and start advertising a little bit better to pull in those bids.
like Swag
That's
said,
a
maybe
part of
Golden has its own audience, right? And maybe the Golden buyer didn't even know that there was one on Heritage because Golden buyers looking at Golden for their stuff. Like it could be that. Like I like
I
what
mean, their
Swag
own,
was bringing up about that.
yeah, their own audience is definitely a thing. Like there are people that only buy on Heritage, you know, like, cause you see that all the time where you're like, a book will sell on Heritage for way more than like multiple copies are available on eBay. But those buyers are never even going to go to eBay. That set of buyers wants to buy on Heritage. They like the trust and everything they get with that. And so there are definitely like pockets of buyers that will only buy on certain platforms.
I would argue that the people bidding on those books, someone in chat mentioned this, and I agree, are probably different 1.0 buyers. Like, I mean, one has a clear, huge chunk missing out of the corner. The other one doesn't. Like, people looking at low grade are probably like have random standards in their head of what they want in a low grade. And in cards, we see this all the time. Similar grades on low end vintage. Orlando's in the chat. He's a huge vintage guy. The eye appeal will drastically swing prices on stuff in the same.
Can I add? Well, let me add a few more interesting things that I didn't get to talk about in my video that maybe we'll continue on with this conversation. But like Ryan said, that was the most expensive version of that Superman book that has ever sold. And I got a lot of comments in my video saying, well, Swag, you don't understand. This is a much better looking copy.
Yeah, that's
but
the one I'm talking. That Superman one is killer.
Yeah, but to me, it sold for twice the amount. Twice. You know, I understand if a book wants to get a premium, that makes sense to me. But the PSA one sold for twice the amount. I mean, look at this copy. One of the most beautiful 1.0s you've ever seen, only sold for 138,000. Now, let me add some other interesting ideas here. This very same book that sold on Heritage also sold on Golden Auctions. Granted, it was 2022, but when it sold on Golden Auctions, it got $103,000. Now, you could make the argument that that was a higher market, and that's why it got that price. But I guess what I'm trying to have a full conversation about is we're starting to maybe see different prices for PSA and CGC or different types of buyers. And I don't necessarily think it has to do with just the look of the book. I actually think it could be the auction houses themselves. And maybe this is a case that Golden is getting higher prices because, like you said, he's marketing better. And that is crazy to me if that's actually what's happening here.
That 1.0 that went for, was it 133,000?
138.
138. I would argue if that book sold today, it would sell for way more. The one that sold in 2022, you're still in peak COVID bubble mode. The other one sold in 2024, and that is definitely, oh God, what the hell has happened to comic books mode? And I think we've clearly seen that things are at least on the semi upswing in 2026. I mean, there's 2 year gaps between all three of those sales. That is significant. I think that needs to be weighed into this conversation for sure.
I recently had someone say something to me, and they were like, "Oh, sorry."
Well, let me just say, okay.
If that comes up today, I would
now
be willing to wager.
I'll also say,
let me just say, hold on. 138,000, April 7th of 2024 on Heritage Auctions. This book selling later that year in November, obviously much uglier copy, selling for 84,000. Now, granted, there's a premium here, but I'm talking 176, the highest price ever paid premium.
Yeah, but 2 years ago was a different world.
No, but I'm saying here in 2024, like if we're talking about a book having a premium, like look at how nice this book is. And then in the same year, this book gets also sells, and there's a $50,000 premium on that. But like that's in the same year. Here in this same year, this is 176 to 88. And I realize it's not exactly the same book, but we're talking a 2x premium versus like a third premium is what I'm just trying to say, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
I get it. It's a non-complete cover. I think that really swings things.
I mean, like the tricky part though is like it all depends how you view it. Like for me, the colors on the PSA one are much worse. And so yes, I do get that that piece is missing out of the corner there on the CGC one, but I would still probably rather have the PSA copy but I don't really like the look of that PSA copy either. Like it's got the tape all along the spine. It's very dulled. You know, and I mean, just for me, I can't stand the look of the larger PSA case that thing is in. I hate it. And so that's a big deterrent to me. It's just like, it looks, I don't know. I just think it looks bad with all that empty space around it. And so like that's why it's like, it's one of those things where it's hard for me to see that price gap, but like, we know how much advertising has been going in at Golden versus other auction houses. And that, like, that's why I think it's probably the auction house, that played, I'm with Swag on that. I think it's the auction house played a big role in this.
Can be selling his ass off,
man. I think it could have played a role. I think the cover plays a larger role.
Well, when you combine the two, maybe that doubles the sale. Maybe.
Well, let's push this even a little further. Let's add even more information and make the story even more.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, knowing the history of that book, I wouldn't have paid that for that book. I don't care. I know what Manu thinks. I don't care. The history is the history on that book. And so,
let's explain to the people what the history of this book is, because as you can see, as we've already discussed and established, this book is now in a PSA slab, but it wasn't always in a PSA slab. In fact, it was in a CGC slab before. If I go to the restored sales and I pull up an auction from 6/2024 on Heritage, we can see that this restored winnow got a price of $60,000. And what do you know? It's the exact same book. We can see by the L in the upper left corner with that pencil right there. You guys can see the L in this pencil right here. So there you go. Talking about cross grading and the market mover video, but you have a restored CGC book that says right edge of centerfold and page 1 and 2 trimmed, getting $60,000. And then just a year and a half later, resub it to PSA, send it over to Golden, and increase your value by 3x. Guys, what do you make about this aspect of the story?
Before Ryan goes in, because Ryan's going to go in, I'm just going to say something, but it's gonna piss people off. How do I say this without? I know a lot. I know a bit more about this book than I can speak to, not for any bad reasons, but because, people that have owned the book, people that have shown me the book, so on and so forth, did so in confidence. And just because I want to prove a point, there's a point that I want to prove. There are some things that I really want to say. I have to respect the relationships that I have and sort of, why this information, why I was made privy and why I had certain privileges with this particular book. And it's not what it seems. And that's all that I can say. But I want to at least be able to say that, because Ryan has a fine opinion based on the information available. But there's more information that I have that I cannot make available. Everything isn't as it seems. I do stand behind the determination of this book, given everything that I know and have seen of this book, while encapsulated, while not encapsulated, all kinds of things. So I won't say much more, but I do want to hear what Ryan has to say, because it is fascinating, but there's information that isn't known publicly.
Before Ryan goes, I want to ask one real quick question, because I'm out of my area of expertise when it comes to low grade books like this in the golden age. Correct me if I'm wrong. Trimming on comics, whether it gets determined or not, is wildly inconsistent. Correct?
That is true.
Wildly.
That is true, and that's why, yes, I could see something like this happen.
Chat that might not know, like, this isn't like obscene that this happened in general. Like, remove this book, submit a golden age book to one grading company, resubmit it to the same grading company, resubmit it to a different grading company. You could very easily get 3 different results whether the book was trimmed or not. Correct?
Yes. So that's the thing with trimming. Trimming is a very messy area with comics. One, because depending on like, some trimming is super obvious. Like, you can just tell, like when it's something where it's like somebody trimmed an entire edge and now it's like a flush, side to the book, instead of, you get the little peak of paper as they're folded together. There's certain things like where some trimming is super obvious. This one, from my understanding, the interior edge is all wrecked up. And so, like, at least that's what I've heard, it's all wrecked up. And so, like, it could be hard to justify one way or the other if it's trimmed or not. That's what, but my point is the history on this book is that it was identified as trimmed, and trimming is not something that you can undo. And so there is a history with this book that says at one point, someone at CGC, which was, I mean, this is a walkthrough book. Like, this isn't nobodies that are reviewing this book. And so someone at CGC that is going to be at the higher level of grading interpreted that this was trimmed. And so that history is there. And to me, that makes me go, there is 0% chance I am ever paying a full universal price for that book.
And I can't argue with that. That's a good point. The history is absolutely there. Like this, we're looking at a picture of this book with the purple label, and someone in the chat said, so why say anything if you can't say anything? Well, because it's important for me to say that there's more information, right? Rather than, that's all, you know?
We've been trying to get him to tell us for a while, and he won't.
I respect my relationships. Like, listen, people, and someone said, why would that piss people off? Because people get mad at me all the time, you know, and it is what it is. But that's the nature of it. Sometimes, you know, you have conversations that you don't make public. It is what it is. I don't have anything to do with the grading.
The Ungraded Truth is going to be a show that gets exclusives. You know, one of these days.
Yeah, well, no, we absolutely do, and I do share a ton. But you know, there's a bunch of people involved in this.
And Chris Sierra's comment, that was the other point I was going to make. That is the other very messy area that comes in with trimming, is that people. I am well aware that there are people out there that get trimmed books and untrim them by applying damage to the edge that was trimmed, and that is absolutely a thing. I also from what Chris Sierra said, yes, it is time to blame the YouTubers. It is the YouTubers' fault that
it's always appropriate. It is always appropriate to blame YouTubers.
And I can't, and you know, and that sounds like something that probably does happen. You know, I just I had to look at the book and I was like, yo, I don't, you know, the whole damn thing is wrecked, you know. And it's like, how do you determine what's trimmed and what's just wrecked, right? And so again, it goes back to like the card thing, right? You pay a company for the opinion, and if the opinion of one company was that it's trimmed and the opinion of the other was that it isn't, who's to say what is and what isn't, what's wrong and what's not, but what's right or what isn't? But what Automatic said is absolutely fact. It's that part of the history of this book is that at one point in time it wasn't a purple label, right? So it has that scarlet letter, if you will. But then we go back to this idea of does the golden buyer know any of that, right? Does the golden buyer know? Not that does he care? Does the golden buyer know the history of it?
Probably.
Right.
I mean, that's a lot of people make the assumption that if somebody is spending a ton of money on something, that they've like done all this history and digging and everything with it. And that is just not the case. Like, I mean, like there are books that I've spent thousands and thousands of dollars on and made split second decisions on. You know, it's like, sometimes you don't. And there's lots of people out there that are not going to put in that level of effort. And there's a lot of people that don't watch any of this type of content, you know. they aren't out there on Instagram or YouTube or anything like that. They're just going about living their lives doing whatever. And so, yeah, it is not a safe assumption to say that somebody has knew about this, or that even very many people out there know about that history.
Yeah.
Someone, and I don't know if you guys saw Immortal's comment, is saying that is what happened with this book. I don't know if that's factual or not.
No, he's just giving me a hard time in there. He said I'm saying what Manu wouldn't. That's not true. But it's just he's having fun. There's a couple people like having fun with me in the chat.
He seems pretty sure.
At the end of the day, to me,
he would be sure about it.
Oh, well, also the buyer of the CGC copy the night before is in the chat.
Oh,
yeah,
well,
shout out to Rob. Yeah, Rob got a good deal on that Heritage one, considering, I mean, what some of the other Superman ones have been selling at, for sure. But I do think that what ultimately this says to me is that, kind of like the card thing, it's just a grading company has their own opinion. And if CGC looked at it and they said, no, this book is trimmed, and PSA looked at it and said, no, this book is not trimmed, I mean, you could sit there and say, well, you know, oh, they're lying or whatever. But to me, I'm just like, you know, at the end of the day, neither of them actually know. Neither of them were there
really
at the moment when the guy was using scissors to like cut the page. Nobody was there. So at the end of the day, it's just a value judgment. And I don't know. It says right there on the baseline.
It got a label that says It's got a
It's
non
universal.
Universal 1.0.
By the grade.
You know,
You really want
sign
to
me
know?
up for $176,000. You know.
I will
So,
say it is
I don't
all
know.
interesting. It is all fascinating how this whole thing played out and the information that's available and the conversation surrounding it, and ultimately the book with the controversy associated for the people that know that it once was a purple label ended up achieving double the value of the unrestored copy. It's just amazing how things just happen sometimes. It's kind of wild.
Yeah. Well, during that heritage auction, we did see a lot of other mega comic book grails go up for sale. In previous shows, we made mention that depending on how some of these high-end books perform, that could be a telltale sign of things to come for comic books this year. I'm just going to pull up some of the sales based on highest price. Obviously, we talked about the Detective Comics 27. That one went for $2.3 million. The Action Comics #1 went for $625,000. Maybe, Ryan, I'll kind of look to you here and just see if you have any broader, bigger takeaways from some of the sales if you want to go into any specific one, but I figure we should cover it since we already set it up.
Yeah, I mean, this auction I kind of felt was a little on the softer side, especially than what I would have expected to see with all the hype and everything that we around like big sales recently. And so I mean, like the Tech 27, it was a record for a Tech 27, but it felt soft. No, I didn't know anybody that was projecting this book to go in the low 2 millions. You know, with everything that's been going on with Action 1 and Superman 1 and higher grade books that just don't come up. Like, yeah, the same book sold for like 1.5 like 5 years ago or something. So yeah, it was a record for the book overall. Like nothing has ever sold for that for a Tech 27, but it felt soft. And that was true for a lot of the higher end books. Like the All-Star 8 dropped again. Even though that's kind of what I was expecting, but the All-Star 8 dropped again. The last sale was 1.5. The one before that was 1.65. And so it's just kind of like ticking down every time. But you kind of feel like that with a book like this, it's almost disappointing to see it come up for sale so many times over such a short period. That would be like seeing that, you know, like that 9.0 Action 1 popping up for sale 3 times in 4 years. Whereas instead it hadn't sold for over a decade. You know, that's what you expect with a book at this caliber. And instead it feels like somebody is just constantly trying to flip these things to the, you know, the next high-end customer. And it just gives a bad vibe for it. But not to say they were all weak. Like the Cap 1 was a really solid sale, that 7.0 Cap 1. It wasn't a record, but it was a strong sale. The Action 1 was a very strong sale because that is effectively a 0.5. And it sold for over $600,000 now for a 0.5 when we had 2 years ago, a 0.5, which was in worse condition, but sell for like 400. So that was really solid. The Tech 29 was a really strong sale. I felt like that one, and that's actually one of my favorite covers for the early Batman. That was a really strong sale. Like, so it was a mix, but it felt like for the most part, they either went around like what you were expecting or a little soft. When you would think for like a big auction like this, you're kind of hoping you're going to see outperformance.
Well, there was one monster sale that happened in this auction, which was, of course, for the Malibu Sun 13 in the PSA 10, selling for $20,130. Manu, everybody knows this was your book. Can you give us a little post-game interview here with this book? What was your thoughts? Tell us about the experience. How are you feeling today?
I feel really good about it, man. It was super cool. I mean, the friends of the channel and people that, you know, watch the show and hang out with us, they know that I did, I did have an expectation of higher. And I just want to get that out of the way first because we didn't realize we didn't realize a higher number. Like we were $270 away from being able to say that it was the highest recorded Spawn sale, which would have been a great thing to be able to say. And I kind of got caught up in that ambition. And but after the fact, you know, after it ended, and it ended at this price, I think the final bid 16.5, and then after buyer's premium 20,130. And I had a moment to reflect on it, and I put the post on my Instagram page. And I missed the book a lot, actually. And I put, as someone asked, and I put the post on my Instagram page, and then you know, all the love and all of the congratulations come in from all the friends in the community that I've known for over the years who followed the journey of this book and stuff. And it put things into perspective for me. It's like, this is still an enormous sale for a book, you know, it's fantastic, right? And yeah, I got caught up in the, oh my gosh, this could do this number, this could do that number. But once the dust settled, I'm super happy. I'm super grateful. It is impressive. You know, there were people that said this book's not going to do $9,000 or $10,000, and there's a level of satisfaction in them not being able to be right about that, you know. And so that's great, right? And I know how beautiful this book is, and also it is the most expensive, the highest price paid for a PSA 10 so far, which is kind of cool. Until that's, you know, some books going to perform better. But you know, it's twice as much as the 266 sold for, 3 times as much as the Killing Joke, and they're all different books. But just from the dollar amount, that's kind of cool, right? It's the most expensive PSA 10 to sell so far, and you know, Heritage selling a PSA slab for that amount of money, also super cool. And Heritage is excited about it, and PSA 10s have been performing well. I'm very eager to find out who bought it. I hope I have a chance to do that. There was a friend that I thought might have been the winner. I don't think he is the winner. So I'm excited about all of it. I'm very pleased. I'm very satisfied. It's a strong sale. A lot of people had a lot of really nice things to say about it. A lot of people enjoyed following the journey, and I feel good about it. It's no longer mine. It's no longer in my collection. I'm going to try to do something bigger and better. And so I'm working on figuring out what that next sort of project or move is going to be. But ultimately, I think it's great, bro. I think it's really cool, and I appreciate everybody's enthusiasm, and you guys are all involved, and you know, teasing me about it and cheering me on at the same time and stuff. And I think it's great, and I feel really honored that I was able to, and I'm really happy that I was in a position to do it and that it all happened. Like, it's just kind of like I could have written it a little differently. It could have sold for 50K. But you know, I do think Swag said something interesting in a video that he recently did about, you know, these topics that we're talking about, like the different auction houses and the results that they're seeing. Swag said if this book went to Golden, he thinks it may have sold for more. And I think maybe you're right about that. You know, like it might have, right? The marketing push behind it would have been different, and maybe the clientele would have been different. I'm eager to see who bought it. It belongs to someone else now. It's a beautiful freaking book. If we ever see this thing at auction again, damn it, it's going to do a lot more. And I hope it does for whoever bought it. I really do believe that. And I don't think it's going to be outdone. I don't care what any hater says. Oh, my new show's not going to be outdone. You don't know that. I think that, though. And that's what I have to say about it. I don't care what anybody has to say about it. You go do something like this, and then you'll have a leg to stand on. Until then, you know, just enjoy the fact that it's kind of awesome, because that's what I'm doing.
What was your play while the auction was running down? Were you like glued to your phone? Did you disconnect from the internet?
I was in Swag's chat. Swag was having a live stream. I was in the chat, and our friends were hoping, you know, something amazing happened, and then nothing happened. It just sold, you know, it just quietly kind of sold. And then I looked at it and I was like, all right, well, I'm going to adjust the post that I had ready, because I kind of had like a post ready about breaking the record, because it was one bit away from breaking the record, and it didn't, right? So I was like, all right, I'm going to do a different sort of post. And Swag called me afterwards, and I was like, I don't know what the heck happened, man, but ultimately, I'm pretty happy with it. And then, like I said, once I made the post, I realized, man, it was just a few of us that knew that I had a higher expectation. Everyone else is just seeing a $20,000 sale for a Malibu, and they're like, this is a lot for a Malibu. And that's so cool. And once I got that perspective, I was able to celebrate it as well and be really happy. And that's the zone that I'm in now. And now, like I said, I'm just trying to find out who bought it. I want to connect with that person, whoever that person is.
At least you didn't have like t-shirts made or something like that.
Right,
like hats.
yeah.
You know, you
Yeah.
have like the hats that get shipped with like the wrong championship team on it.
Yeah. Someone said, who's taking the over under Manu sends his next book to Golden? I don't know, man. We'll have to play it by ear when it happens. You know, I'll assess the climate at that time. But first, I got to make that book. You know, everything else that I have, I'm able to sell privately, connect with the clients. I think this was the sort of book that was worth sending to auction and see what could be realized out of my reach. And I got to figure out what that next thing is going to be. I have some ideas, but the ideas aren't realized. I got to pursue it and then make it happen. This book took 5 years to turn into a 10. So who knows when the next, you know, kind of thing that I'm excited about happens.
Well, it was an incredible sale. congratulations to you. It's a big step for PSA Comics selling at that price point. And that's maybe a good thing, because PSA might soon need more money to handle some of their situations, as we lead into our next topic here, which is a post from this user, BVOTCG, who had this to say: please read, share, and repost. Posted on his Instagram. This wasn't the news I wanted to hear, but it happened. PSA damaged my PSA 10 lenticular deoxys while it was getting reholdered. The card was impacted during encapsulation process and was deemed a PSA 6. This is a story that has gone completely viral. As you can see from this post, 1 million views over on the X platform. He apparently had this Pokemon card that has a fair market value of around 40,000 to 60,000. That actually is part of the story and the discussion that we're about to have with this thing. He got it reholdered at PSA. They damaged it. They said, we are so sorry. Unfortunately, during the process, we had to reholder it, and it is now a PSA 6. But don't worry, we can offer you a fair market value of $20,000. A lot of money, except for the fact that the recent sale of this card, which happened to be by the PSA account, was at $40,000 plus. So, Rob, let me kind of throw this over to you here. What did you think about this situation and this viral post? And is PSA going to need to pay up here?
So I'll give a brief update here. I talked to the person that submitted this card on Friday, and it seems like things were heading in a positive direction. PSA had contacted him on Friday, and it looked like it was going to head in a good direction. So we would hope to have an update. Though I talk about this in my video that's going live tomorrow, we may not see an update on it, because when PSA pays out for a grade guarantee, they make you sign an NDA. So there's a good chance we just never hear anything about this again. And that probably means that it was satisfactory to the submitter, because they didn't make a bigger stink about it. So if nothing else comes out about this, then we could probably assume that happened. The 20 and 45K, I don't know where they're getting the 60K number. There's nothing other than people just saying. It's kind of like Kevin O'Leary. It's like, oh, this card's just worth 60K. There's nothing to back that up. But the 45K sale came from the PSA vault, like you said. So the video that I made originally talking about this is, if PSA wants to be in the business of grading cards, selling cards, having card ladder that prices cards, you kind of paint yourself into a corner on these situations. You have zero wiggle room on this. Like, you have to cut the check for 45K. And I am sure they would have gladly spent the extra 25K to not have this go completely viral. Like, they have gotten so much negative press from this. Like, that tweet alone got 1 million. I can't tell you how many Instagram stories and reels I have seen about this card, how many Facebook posts I've seen about this situation. And I don't know if it was just as simply as the left hand didn't know what the right hand was doing or what. I do know, because I have talked to folks that have done grade guarantee things before in the past, and the number is negotiable. Now, in this case, it was clear cut. There was a recent sale at 45K. There hasn't been a sale forever. It's pretty clean. But as one of the big conversations in cards this past 2 weeks has been like around comps, and like not all comps are created equal. And if you have multiple sales and outliers and all this wasn't really the case with this. But generally speaking, on grade guarantee stuff, there is some negotiation there. I know plenty of people that, the PSA initial offer is a little light, and then you go back and you show them like, well, these sold for this, and how come it's not closer to this number? And they come back and are like, oh yeah, we agree with that. We'll go ahead and give you that number. So just like when you're buying a collectible, there's a little bit of negotiation in there. It's not clear cut. Now, that being said, this was just a straight low ball. Where that came from or how it got generated, I don't know. We'll probably never know. But it does seem like, fingers crossed, this guy's going to get a check that he is happy with.
And I'll say, like, because there's a comment from Eggplant Comics where it says, it sucks, but I take the money and run. No guarantee you get anything. That's not true with PSA.
Yeah.
PSA, there is a guarantee. And that's why you can actually, have these conversations, and you can push for something, because that is one of the, I mean, when you had, was it Ryan Hogue? I don't remember who it was, but you had somebody on your channel that was talking about how much they spend on these like guarantees.
That was Matt, I think, when I had Matt
okay, yeah,
on.
how much they have to spend, and it's a lot of money. Like they spend a lot of money to keep that, to make people, you know, believe in what they're getting, you know. And so
now, the grade guarantee is not perfect. There are some flaws in it, and the trade-off of the grade guarantee, the big reason why they have it, and one of the biggest things that people like to bitch about on PSA, is the upcharges. The part of the reason they have the not all, but part of the reason that they have upcharges is because of the grade guarantee backing it up. Now, also part of the reason that they have upcharges is because they can. That's a big part of it too. But there's a reason why. Now, CGC has a grade guarantee. The funny part about CGC is they have a grade guarantee on cards. They don't have a grade guarantee on comics, which is, I find,
it's very strange,
extremely amusing.
Yeah, I agree.
For me, can I ask you this, Rob? Just in trying to unpack and follow the story for myself, like, I just sort of wonder, was this one of those things that went viral before it would have naturally played out and been fixed anyways? And what I mean to say by that is, you know, from this post, you know, shout out to Auburn35, who's a friend of the channel here, friend of Rob and myself as well. He says, what was the declared value you placed on the card during the Reholder submission? 45K. It's understandable to be upset with the damage, but even without a disputed fair market value, PSA terms allow for a payout to be lesser of the declared market value. I wonder if, like, did he like submit the card with like a $20,000, you know, value? Like that was the one he did. So like kind of the instant process that he got sent to him was like, oh, hey, we'll pay you out for $20,000 because that's the insurance value. And like, yeah, like you have to put up a stink after that because like that's not what he actually checked. And in all likelihood, I would just think that in all these cases, PSA, if you give them pushback or have the conversation, they would always fix this situation. Like, wasn't there like an Otani card? Remember one time that was like a story that you did that had to get a payout from something like it was trimmed or something like that? And
yeah, that was that was one that, once again, we don't actually know what happened there. We just stopped hearing about it.
Yeah. So I just think it was an interesting thing because it went viral.
This at.
Yeah. Like, I just wonder if it, like, did it go viral so fast that it was like, how did PSA not take care of it? But it was like, they probably just would have, like, in the process of talking to the insurance claims and all that. I don't know.
And I don't know that we know the clear time frames, like, of when they emailed him. Like, I don't know that we know like the exact day and time stamp of that versus when he emailed them back and was like, no, 20K is not good enough. And they're like, well, you know, this, that, or whatever. That all, to your point, could have happened within 45 minutes of each other. And maybe the process did not complete itself. Maybe if this never gets posted on Monday morning after it gets escalated a few times, it ends up taking care of itself on its own. We'll never know that. You know, that's the alternate timeline of all this at this point in time. I could guarantee you this helped him. There was no pushback probably. Yeah. And well, I'm assuming anyway. You know, like I said, we're not gonna 100% know for sure. If I know PSA has the NDA, and I commented on this, if they were smart, they would say, listen, I know we have an NDA. You don't have to say specific numbers, but it wouldn't be, we would really appreciate it. And I would even pay him out heavier and say, you know, it might not be the worst idea if you just posted like, PSA did me right. We're all good now. Even though that tweet would not get 1 million views. It probably would be in PSA.
They'd probably attack him for being a PSA shill.
Yeah. Like, oh, look, PSA paid him off the tweet positive.
Can't win.
But they did get a lot of negative press on this, and it would have been well worth their weight in gold to spend the 25K.
My goal in collecting is to satisfy everyone. I want to make everyone happy.
I don't know. I feel like you got to cut that. Just use that as like a.
We got to cut that out. Use that as a meme. You know, we can just play that. You know, anytime it pops up.
One of the commenters in chat, Jeff Becker, commented, who's I believe has gone through this process. He says that that's pretty much exactly how it lays out.
I wonder, like, maybe
they cut him a 5-figure buyback thanks to their guarantee.
Gotcha. I wonder if maybe Manu and Ryan, you have thoughts on this, but this situation reminded me a little bit of Reholder Gate. And from what I know in some of the conversations that we've had, with people that experience that, like it was a little bit of like a push pull in terms of like
Oh yeah.
saying what the value is and like trying to get maximum money and then like having to justify like, well, actually the sale was this and whatever. Obviously this looks really bad because the recent comp sale literally came from PSA. So that's like the ultimate irony of, and probably why this particular one went so viral. But I wonder if you guys had thoughts on that CGC swap situation.
It's been a while, so I'm going to say a couple of things, and this doesn't apply to any one person because I did this for multiple people, so it doesn't really matter anymore. CGC put out the list of whatever, right? And there was way more books than the books on the list. It is what it is. But the people that had the books on the list had the ability to send your books back in. You had to give them up. You had to send your books to CGC, and then they would look at the books, keep the books, do whatever they do with the books, I don't know, and then send you an offer. And most of the offers were crap. Yes, the market was different, but I'm talking about certain books, $30,000 were paid for, and at that point in time, they were $15,000. And CGC would make claims like, you can buy one of these for $10,000. And you can't. Where are they? And even if one person made one available, the second one's not going to. There was a whole bunch of stuff.
Yeah, it was the ASM 30098 newsstands because they just weren't out there. I think that was one of the big sticking points for some people.
That was definitely some of the books as well. Absolutely. But there are people in life that don't negotiate, that don't like what's the word? Anyway, confrontation, right? But I say this, and a lot of people say this, I didn't come up with this. In life, you get what you negotiate, not what you deserve. And the people that were just about to settle with whatever the offers were, I said, no, I'll write your emails for you. And I wrote emails for several people. And with each email, the offer went up. With each email, the offer went up. And when it got to certain books, when it got to a certain price where they didn't want to pay it, they offered to replace the book. At which point the negotiation became, well, you can't just blindly send me any 9.8 of this book. I have to be able to see the book and say that is a direct replacement for my copy, that I do like it, that it is represented properly, right? Because you might have one with shit colors, a bad wrap, all of the things we talk about, right? So the negotiation process for a lot of books was super frustrating. Obviously, the company trying to get away with is the wrong word, but I mean, it's in their best interest to give as little as possible. But it was a tug of war. It was a fight to negotiate. And many negotiations went smoothly once the second email was written. But off the bat, some of the offers were absolute crap.
Any other thoughts on this story right here before we kind of move on to our next? But it seems like, Rob, this is going to have a happy ending for this user.
It seems like it's heading that direction. I don't want to guarantee anything because I don't know the situation that well, but he seemed positive on where things were headed last that I exchanged DMs with him.
Yeah. And I mean, like just as I think anybody that's had like a frustration with whatever it is, some type of grading or something like that, even if it was only 45 minutes, like when you're thinking I can just put myself a little bit in that person's shoes. Like you're thinking about like, I'm going to lose $25,000. That 45 minutes feels like a long time. And you start thinking it over and over and over and over again. And you get angry. And then you're just like, I'm posting about this. You have to go online, you post. You don't care. You're not waiting. Like if they're not responding to your email right away, you're like, you get more and more frustrated. And I can totally see that happening. Like just because, like you're going to be pissed. Like they damaged your property and then they're trying to lowball you. And you're not going to want to, you're not going to take it well. And it's
the crazy part is that's that guy's only tweet.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he has a big Instagram following because that's where I found him. But it looks like he has a decent following in the Pokemon space on Instagram, but that's his only tweet. So think how much traction the Instagram post got along with like the Twitter posts.
Yeah.
Pretty amazing. And if anything, in case I wasn't clear earlier in setting up the story, like I totally think that he should make that post. If it happened to me, you guys know I'd have a video with my face palm on it ASAP. Like I'd be talking about that. PSA is shortchanging me $25,000. Like I absolutely would have done that. So completely understandable. Well, let's give a quick shout out to Rage
Yo.
Theo Collectables for the $9.99, who says, Manu, congrats, brother. Huge sale. We appreciate you, Rage. And also Stony Maloney with another $9.99 that says, just wanted to say that Swag Ryan 99, 9.9 Neo, you guys are awesome. And this is my favorite weekly podcast. Love you guys. Stony, appreciate you. Love you back. We're not a weekly podcast. We're bi-weekly, you know? But now I kind of feel like sometimes maybe the ungraded truth, you know, might have to be a weekly show, because I feel like we've been on this cadence where like the big story has happened like the day after we do our show, you know, which was kind of like the market movers conversation. You know, sometimes we're on the wave where it's like, oh, it's perfect alignment. And then sometimes we're like off the wave. But, you know, we'll have to see.
Rage, thank you so much, my brother. I appreciate it.
Derek in chat asks, I believe that I'm almost positive this, the PSA grade guarantee does apply to comics.
PSA grade guarantee applies to comics. I mean,
I'm almost positive.
It seems like
I wouldn't be surprised. I've never heard that it doesn't.
I'm
but
almost positive that it does.
Also, quick shout out to Geeks Are My Peeps, the new channel member. Geeks Are My Peeps, I appreciate you for that one. All right. Well, let's head on to our next topic here. You know, the guy was upset about his Pokemon card being damaged, and hopefully is going to be getting a big payout. And maybe what he should do with that big payout is move it over to Manga, because guys, Manga is about to go to the moon. Shout out to Jeremy Padawar, who had a post that kind of went viral in the collecting space, a collab with Beckett, that said he just paid $275,000 for these first print manga volumes. You guys can see a Dragon Ball, a One Piece, and a Naruto. And Jeremy kind of went on to talk about Manga. He made some videos on his Instagram page where he kind of laid out his entire thesis as to why he has decided to move into manga. He talks about how, you know, Superman, he remembers it selling for, you know, $100,000 back in the day, and now it's a $9 million comic book. And also One Piece is actually a lot bigger than Superman is. And he kind of, you know, has always been on the forefront of the collectible world and talking about, you know, Pokemon cards before they were really hot. And now his play is in the manga space. I think that this is interesting because manga has been sort of what I would say like a poorly kept secret within like the comic collecting circles that I've been in. Like everybody has been saying, oh, like manga, just watch, like manga's going to be the next thing. Manga's going to be the next thing. But it hasn't quite taken off yet. Although with this new post, maybe that's going to be the thing that catapults it into, you know, the limelight. And considering that, you know, the first appearance, quote unquote, of One Piece comes from this manga, and you have people on Reddit talking about, is the One Piece hype actually over? The prices were nowhere near sustainable. One Piece going to zero, prices going down heavy for PSA 10 slabs of One Piece. This person says manga and SPs are the only thing that you should be buying. Of course, there are some promo cards that are maybe worth picking up, but I sort of wonder, like, is this the perfect storm? Like mangas to the moon, One Piece cards going to zero. Maybe all my One Piece money should actually be going to picking up a first edition. What do you guys think about all this?
I'll say one, Jeremy has an absolutely insane collection overall. That guy has ridiculous cards in his collection. And he actually, I don't want to completely misquote this, I believe he lost a large chunk of his cards in the fires in California a couple of years ago when that happened. And he even had them stored in a bank and they got destroyed. But that guy has insane stuff.
Yeah, Jeremy definitely does have insane stuff. I just want to say, we are fans of Jeremy over here on the Ungraded Truth. We'd love to have him on the show. So invite open to Jeremy.
Please come on. Yeah.
I can speak more to the card side of it than I can the manga side of it. The big thing that's going on with the cards is basically what's happening to Absolute Batman 1. More graded supply is coming to market as everyone ran to grade all their stuff than the market can support. So it's pulling prices down. It might be temporary. They might bounce back, but right now it's as simple as supply is outweighing demand more than anything else.
That's my thing, that I don't know enough about what is truly available out there with manga, because with Superman 1, like the comparison to Superman 1 and everything, like those books are mostly gone. Like they were destroyed in paper drives and parents throwing them out and just not being collectibles really back in that time period and everything. And manga just isn't that old. It's very possible that there are large numbers of them out there. Now in high grade, maybe not. Like, it's like that could be a different story. And so yeah, it is. I agree. It's one of those areas where you've got to see what happens when prices jump. Because if you see prices jump, it pulls things out if they're there. If those numbers if the number of copies or census or whatever there is out there for manga, if that stays relatively flat after big sales, then you start to have some justification for that pricing. But you've got to give it a little time to really know what's out there. And maybe he's done that research. I don't know. But yeah, that would be my biggest concern.
Correct me if I'm wrong, CBCS is the only one that grades them, right? CGC does not grade mangas?
Yes. Beckett
CGC
is the only
theory
one that grades it.
I believe I don't think they are yet, but there's no reason why I don't think that they could probably use their pulp cases to grade manga. Like I'm surprised they haven't. I don't think they have, but I'm surprised they haven't tried to push into that area yet, because I would expect manga would be much more profitable long term than pulps.
100%. It's interesting with this sale because he said in his description that this is one of the most significant private manga transactions to date. And we've been having a lot of conversations about the hype and the marketing that kind of goes into it. And I wonder if in a weird way, is it actually more helpful to be kind of this first to market person who's jumping in and setting the market? Is it actually almost a little bit of a benefit in this weird way, based on how a lot of the record sales kind of puts people in the driver's seat with a lot of collectibles? I don't know if you guys have thoughts on that one.
I don't even think it's that weird. I think it's obvious.
People know Jeremy, so the fact that it's him doing it in high-end collectible circles is going to raise eyebrows alone.
100%.
Sorry, Renew.
Sorry. We're saying the same thing. I think it's very obvious. I think Jeremy, I don't think this is a bad thing. I think Jeremy's very aware of that. He's very public in the world of collecting. He's built a business on collecting, and he invests in collectibles, and he's very open about how he likes to buy things that he can 10x over 10 years, I think, and you could correct me if I quoted him incorrectly. And I think he believes that this is going to have a higher payout, and he's in an influential group. He's part of influential circles. His voice travels far and wide, and this is 100% going to affect values, and he's very aware of that. He's driving change as we speak.
Yeah, and I guess that's always we've seen that in other collectibles too, though, like video games and VHS. VHS, I think we always felt was kind of not gonna probably take off, but video games definitely had a big pop, and then you haven't really I don't hear much about them anymore, and so it's hard to know for sure what the market is going to be. Yeah, they still do, but they definitely aren't the center of attention that they were 3 or 4 years ago.
No, the hype push isn't on them like it was when Wada was first out and the auction houses were having all of this and all of that every week. It's not like that anymore. Yeah.
Can I say,
I was just going to say,
we're going to get there, Rob. We're going to get there, Rob.
Okay.
We're going to get there. Yeah, that's going into my next segue. But one of the things I'm curious about with the video game thing is you guys kind of laid it out, and as it relates to this manga story, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm not an expert in manga. I don't know if you guys have a sense of this, or maybe people in the chat can weigh in. But is there a collecting culture within the manga space? And I guess what I mean by that is there's kind of a collecting culture in the video game world, but it wasn't really on the high end. And so you can have people come in and be like, oh, I want the sealed Super Mario game, and pay crazy numbers for it. And you have a couple whales that can make that market happen. But I don't know, maybe I'm wrong. It doesn't feel like there's an entire manga collector fandom. And I wonder if that's going to be a hindrance from this ever becoming a huge vertical within collecting. Obviously people will get excited about it. People will get interested in it. Where there's money, there's interest. But I just don't know if it has the infrastructure to support it in that sense. But I don't know if you guys had thoughts on that. And I guess maybe relating it quickly back to the One Piece cards, like, could you actually see like One Piece fans hopping from that to manga? I kind of just feel like if you're a card person, you're a card person. You don't really transition, even if it's the same IP. I don't know. What do you guys think about those things?
I mean, I think if you're a One Piece fan, you're a One Piece fan. So it just kind of depends on how deep you want to go.
I guess my push to that is like, yes, the manga is the first appearance of like One Piece. That's like where the thing was created. But there's people that spend money on Spider-Man collectibles that don't have AF-15s because they just don't care about owning comics.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, that was actually something I was wondering about too. Like, I don't know what the collector base is like for that. And that's why that's kind of the area where I feel like it's similar to those other ones where they're almost trying to build that collector base. And I mean, I'm not like, I just watch anime. I don't read manga. And so like, even though like I'm a big fan of a lot of that stuff out there in terms of anime, I don't really have any interest in buying graded manga. And so that's why I don't necessarily say like, just because you're a fan of One Piece or whatever, that you're immediately going to go and buy the collectibles that are in that area. Like, you may just be a fan of the anime, you know, and that's about it. So yeah, that's why I do think that it really, you have to see how it plays out. Now, it doesn't necessarily, if you've got the money, it sounds like he has a very expensive, extensive collection. Like this probably is a small percentage of his total collection's value. And he's more than willing to take that risk and say like, I'm buying these like top end pieces. And if 10, 20 years from now, they're 10 times, 20 times the value, great. You know, I did really, really well. If they're worth about the same, you know, it's not like a huge percentage of my portfolio and it's worth the risk. But if you're like thinking of dumping like all your money into it, that's a different story.
And I think, Ryan, what you just said is very important. And if I'm not mistaken, I believe Jeremy is on the record as saying that so far this year, he has spent 1.25 million investing into collectibles. So this is, you know, a fraction of that, and he plans to spend more throughout the year. And that's important perspective to have. You know, this is an individual that is placing bets passionately and really enjoys what he does. And not everyone can do that, right? So you make a really valid point. For me, manga is so far out of my wheelhouse. I have no idea what's out there and or what it is or what, you know, what year. Like, I think some of those were from 1980s. I think some of them are modern. I don't know anything about it, so I do not have my finger on the pulse of what the collecting market is. But hey, Jeremy's a smart guy. But also, I think he's probably right more often than he's not. I really don't know that. I don't know the extent of his collection, but I know he's placing bets and he's probably prepared for whatever. But he's a smart guy. I have no idea.
Yeah. Well, it'll be interesting to see how it all shapes out. I mean, people in the kind of circles that I've been talking to have definitely been talking about manga for a long time. And maybe this is going to be that catalyst to kind of put it into the zeitgeist. But, you know, with manga going to the moon, that could be a good thing for it. But it's not such a good thing if you're a VHS collector. As Rob was kind of insinuating earlier, Beckett Collectables just made an announcement that they are closing their doors for graded VHSs. Now, maybe there's not too much to say here. You know, they kind of said that this is going to be the last time to submit your graded VHS tapes. But perhaps the more interesting aspect to this is this that first step in Beckett/CBCS starting to close shop? As we all know, collectors recently acquired Beckett/CBCS. And we all kind of guessed that this might be what is going to happen with them shutting their offices. But guys, what did you think about this announcement and you know, the broader conversation of Beckett closing up shop?
Well, I guess one question: does PSA have anything else that grades VHS? Like, do they have any other arm?
So.
Because I mean, maybe they just finally got to look under the hood and they're like, there is no money here. It's like we're grading like 10 of these a week or something, and so let's just shut it down.
I'm almost positive PSA does not grade VHS. And by the way, PSA does have a grade guarantee on comic books. I did confirm that as well while we were poking around. They do grade video games, but not comic books. And PSA recently canceled their Funko Pop grading, other than authentication for autographs.
Because didn't PSA buy WADA?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They rebranded it.
And they rebranded it. Yeah.
It's now PSA.
Excuse me, Swag. I apologize. I know you just broke this down. Beckett's not. Is Beckett announcing VHS grading for the first time, or have they always done VHS?
They're closing it down.
They're closing it down, and they're giving 50% off, so you can grade at a company.
Like if you had like one last thing you wanted to send in, this is your shot.
Yeah, I don't think I'm going to be sending them any, but I definitely want to grade some VHS. I just like the nostalgia of it.
I don't know that anybody else does.
It's all right. I like it. I don't know who I would grade it with.
CGC grades VHS.
Yeah. You know what? And I will say this: CGC's graded VHSs, they look great. They look cool in that case. They look fantastic. I've seen those on eBay and stuff. I've been tempted to buy a few, and all the ones I want are.
And hey, we got Vancouver Comic Junkie in the chat. He says Beckett had the worst VHS case. So there you go.
Oh, interesting.
All right.
Well, Vancouver Comic Junkie is definitely our VHS expert. He's our
cool.
phone a friend in terms of understanding that market.
Right.
So this sounds like Collectors Universe is basically just ceding that market to CGC.
Yeah. Or perhaps, like you said or speculated, I mean, is this just a broader push for PSA to, open up that division? Like maybe they're going to close the doors here and open up their own VHS vertical if they view it as something that, could be successful to them. I think it's really interesting. I do want to point out that the mangas are in a Beckett slab, in case that wasn't actually clarified.
Yeah.
I do think that the mangas actually look quite nice in this Beckett slab.
Agreed.
But I do wonder, that could be something where does it get turned over to PSA? Who knows? I think that in case it's not clear, when they did acquire WADA, PSA did turn over WADA to PSA slab. So who knows? We'll have to see.
Is Robin pulling our leg here? What is this? It's just like a nostalgia play, like how Toys R Us pops up as pop-up shops.
No, there is. I did see a post on social within the last week about like a video store reopening and doing extremely well.
I'm happy for whoever did that. That's fantastic. I love the VHS world.
I mean, to go back to your original question, Swag, my biggest prediction of the year was that CBCS doesn't exist when Beckett first sold to collectors. So I think we all know where I sit with that one.
Now, granted, the manga aren't CBCS; they are Beckett.
Yeah.
Like it is a different. It's dumb, but like it's like they aren't under the same umbrella. Like they're under the back or under the same naming convention. Like for whatever reason,
I wonder if that's just a naming thing, though, because I have to imagine you would think it would be the people grading the comic books that are also grading that. I wouldn't think that they would have a separate grading team. Beckett's not that big of a company.
I don't know, just because
for that, maybe they do.
Like CGC has a completely different grading team for magazines and for pulps. At least I'm pretty sure they do. And so, because like I remember when the pulp grading came out, like Matt Nelson did a video where he said they had to they brought in like pulp experts to kind of like teach them the ins and outs of grading on pulps and all of that. And so that's why I feel like it's probably fairly different with manga, especially because it's completely different paper and everything. Like I just, I imagine there's different things you're going to be looking at, and they're much thicker and all of that. Like I feel like it's much more like grading a pulp than grading a comic.
But Jeremy's definitely coming on the show, right? We got to talk about his collection. We got to talk to this man.
Open invite to Jeremy, soon to be on a future episode of the Ungraded Truth podcast. And maybe we can also get the next person we're going to talk about on the Ungraded Truth podcast, because it seems like he's been on a marketing tour. Kevin O'Leary is wearing his Kobe Bryant and Michael Jordan dual logo man card on the red carpet at the Actor Awards. This, of course, the famous one of one that has Kobe and Jordan's signature on it, that he got in a diamond encrusted chain with also diamonds wrapped around it, much like the Logan Paul card. I feel like this meme on the side,
you're cracking up at that in the corner,
is just like the perfect encapsulation of what this felt like.
Oh my God. Yes.
Guys, what did you make of Kevin O'Leary going on the campaign trail, pulling a Logan Paul here and marketing his card?
He's not speaking to us, but this does speak to the fact that there is an audience out there that doesn't have a damn clue what they're doing. And, you know, Kevin's probably going to end up making some money.
My question is what would it take for someone to... But I was going to sneeze.
Bless you.
For like an AF-15 and a 9.8 around their neck or something in a diamond encrusted case.
It's just so corny. It's just the corniest shit ever is happening.
Comics would never, as a common phrase in our group chat.
I hope that carries on to this.
Well, you know what's funny?
Why cards are so big. This is why cards are so big, though, and comics aren't.
Yeah, well,
it's true. It's true. You know, it is so corny, but at the same time, like it's totally on brand for Logan Paul to have done it like he did. Whereas this one, like, you could just see, like, just look into Kevin's eyes, like deep in his soul. Like he doesn't buy it himself. Like he doesn't believe it either.
And I like Kevin, and this is like this I can't even defend, but Kevin's doing Kevin. I get it. You know, Kevin's a marketer too, and he's a businessman. He doesn't give a shit what the common person thinks. He doesn't care. He's not talking to any of us, you know? But this whole thing about, and it's Tiffany gold and Tiffany diamonds. The fuck you talk about? Tiffany didn't make the gold or the diamonds just because Tiffany produced it. I just hate all of this shit. Like all of this luxury brand stuff, like I hate it all. It all sucks. None of it feels good to me. Tiffany gold, Tiffany diamonds. Get the fuck out of here with this shit. But it's gonna work for the audience that he's talking to. It's gonna work, and so good for Kevin. I'm still a huge Kevin fan. I love it, but it's getting a little too close to home. Like every card's on a chain now, and if it does end up becoming a comic book on a chain, I'm just gonna cringe more. It is what it is, though. I ain't mad. A little rant, but you know, whatever.
It's like after the Logan Paul chain thing, there was another person that put their card on a chain, and I kind of made fun of that. And then you see this happen, and you're just like, it's just so dumb. It's just so stupid. But
it is so stupid. But like, I don't know, guys. I mean, we had that conversation of like the PSA Superman selling for more. Like, this is the marketing world we're in, and with social media being the vehicle, like, I think it'll really tell us a lot how his card performs, assuming he is trying to sell it.
He said he's never going to sell it. Yeah.
It's not for sale right now.
Which I do not believe.
Sure, they're new. Like they're building him and Shine and another person are basically building like an index fund around collectibles, and that card is like the face of it.
Sure. So, but he is selling something ultimate.
He's not selling the
right?
card.
Like, there's
selling
a reason.
Cards as an investment, for high end folks.
Yeah, he is wearing it around his neck on the red carpet for a reason, because whether if he's selling the card itself or selling some venture that he's eventually going to, you know, put out, he's definitely selling something. But I just think that this is the world that we're in. And like, until it doesn't work, I think that it's just going to get more and more like this.
There's a risk in it getting so ridiculous because it creates a misconception in the minds of others. This is how bubbles are created. This is how collapses and crashes happen. When people that, you know, aren't really in the collectible world start being influenced and inspired, and then they go out and do dumb shit and they're not able to make a profit, and then they lose their ass. The collecting market goes to sleep for 10 years. You know what I mean? It's like when the people that aren't truly here jump in because they think everything is going to make them money. That's only good while it's good. And it's only good for the people selling into it. Now, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it. It's just a matter of fact that creates bubbles, and then bubbles have to burst. Like this level of excitement, enthusiasm, this level of hoopla generally doesn't end well. But while it's happening, get your money, sell into it. That's what you're supposed to do.
I don't know. You got to be a moon boy. Yeah.
You don't know what you're talking about here. Okay. Because when I go over to Logan Paul's Rip It, this is what I see.
What is this? I can't. I can't. What is this?
Oh God,
Careful.
I just hated
we don't
watching that. I hated watching it so much.
I never watched it. I can't believe that 5 seconds of silence that I couldn't hear was loud enough for me to never want to watch it ever.
Yeah, you could hear it even with the silence.
He's fired out.
Oh my God! One day I'm gonna figure out how to make the audio work.
I'm so glad you didn't figure it out today.
I was doing it for the perfect timing. Like I was like, oh, I got this.
You were convinced.
Transition ready. I'm like,
Swag. I want to say we're nearing the end. I know know you have a schedule, but maybe this didn't make it. I want to hope it does. You didn't forget about the update on the McFarlane book, right? Like something that actually is just,
Guys, who knew? You think I forget this stuff?
We forget stuff sometimes. Sometimes we do. Sometimes we forget.
You think that I forget that everyone was mad at Todd McFarlane once upon a time for not signing a book, The Invisible Copy, as we dubbed it, from Al Gon's NJ. Looks like has a happy ending? Question mark.
Please tell me he kept the original one.
Yeah, that he actually sent it in to Brittany over at CGC and actually got Todd McFarlane to sign it this time. As you guys can see from the bottom of the label, now it does say Todd McFarlane down there. And Todd also added this message at the top, this time for sure.
Oh man, that's
there
worth
you guys
a
have
fortune now. That's even better
than
the Invisible.
I want to, I'm so glad we're talking about this. So this is the update. This belongs to Alex. This is Alex's post. Everyone go say what up to Al Gon's NJ on Instagram. He's a good friend. He's a dope collector. You go on his Instagram page, you don't get a glimpse into this man's collection. He is such a strong collector. He's got so much incredible stuff. And he knew that, Swag and I and so many people were like, don't send it back in. It unsigned with the yellow label is its own quirky collectible. Do not send it back in. But, he's a very reasonable man. And he was like, but my intention was to have it signed. But we did, I think, have some effect, some influence. And he, came up with an idea on his own where CGC wanted to fix it, right? CGC reached out to him and wanted to fix this. But Alex said, listen, guys, we'll do this, but is it possible that you can get Todd to make it special? Right? Like acknowledge the fact that something wacky went on here. That would be amazing. And there were no promises made, but CGC came through, Todd came through. And the only thing that I think could have made this more special than it being unsigned, which was quirky and cool, and you could spin a story out of that, is it now being beautifully signed and having that inscription, having that story be cemented into this book. I couldn't be happier for Alex. I think this makes this one of the coolest 313s in the world. And he told me that I can share this, and shout out CGC for taking care of it. Shout out Todd for making it even more special. And I fucking love this thing now. That's cool.
How comical would it have been if on this version it came back in 9.6?
Oh my gosh, bro.
Yeah, it would have been great. I mean, that's always the fear, right? But I wonder if this didn't even touch the grading floor.
What would Todd? Would
they're just like 9.8. Do it.
Would Todd have had to sign this at like Chick-fil-A, fresh off of like a 12-pack of nuggets, for this not to get a 9.8?
It's something real dramatic, bro, because that would have been so bad. But yeah,
like this was the most guaranteed lock 9.8 crack out of all time. There was no way this was going down to a 9.6.
Isn't that cool, guys? We talked about the page that
is awesome, though.
Yeah, it's cool. It's cool. Shout out Alex. Shout out Todd. Shout out CGC. That's great.
Yeah, ghost signature on the label would have been badass if they noted something on like a pedigree almost on the label.
That would have been really cool.
Yeah.
Just for the conversation, I know you guys already established it based on your reaction, but like, do we think that that it makes it more valuable that it has this time for sure?
Oh yes,
100%
compared to the Invisible book. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, even more. Yeah. Compared to it not having an inscription and compared to the Invisible, I think this is best case scenario because this kind of ties in the Invisible story. The Invisible story is now invisible, but it's a part of it still. It's a cut above, I think.
Yeah, like the few times that Todd McFarlane adds like some extra flair to a cover. It all like there was the one when it was like the King Spawn, where I think it was like the last one of all the like 500 he signed or whatever, and he added something extra to it. Like those types of things, like they are going to add a lot of value. Even though I mean I don't know, maybe he's never going to sell it. I feel like you would have a hard time selling that book. Like a hard time selling that book.
Yeah.
Interesting.
That feels like a coffin book. Like that's going with me.
Your kids are selling that book.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. As soon as Dad's in the ground.
Well, either way, it's a really cool thing to see that, we got a happy ending with this one. We started the stream, talking about that grading companies are a scam, but at least, sometimes grading companies and their signatures can, yield positive results. And it kind of leads to another little aspect in terms of a story that I want to talk about which is a lot of scams going on in the comic book market. A lot of success within the modern comic world. We've talked about Dork, we've talked about Narco, we've talked about what are all the books? Nectar, all these crazy modern books that are selling for more than retail. And with the success of a lot of these books and the prices going crazy, we've seen a lot of scams going on, in different spaces. This was a post that I made a video about where somebody had made a fake Absolute Batman 16 that had this Quintana cover on it, which was, if you guys don't know, this was a very, very popular Absolute Batman variant. The original art sold at auction for $100,000. Apparently, some Whatnot seller has been selling this comic and doing a reprint of it and actually forging the Quintana signature on it. And even Dan Quintana himself had shared the fact that, this is not a book that I have signed. This thing is an absolute fake. Don't buy it from these people that are selling it. Brian McClay, shout out to them, Beyond Wednesdays and Industry Comic Show. They talked about some of these scams going on, and Brian is putting together a whole, list of sellers that are doing this stuff. I kind of wanted to just kind of bring that story quickly up and just kind of float it back to you guys. Signed book scams, fake signatures, things of that nature. I mean, is this the one thing that, we want to have grading companies for, I guess?
Stay off Whatnot's my advice.
I like that advice.
Yeah, I don't think any of us really spend much time on Whatnot. I mean, but a lot of people do, though. I mean, so that's the thing. Like we do, I feel like it is important to speak to. A lot of people do spend a lot of time on Whatnot. And I mean, a lot of people get caught up in the hype on it. But I'm one of those people where it's like, I don't care how other people spend their money. Like if other people want to spend their money on a platform and pay more than market value for things, that's fine. But yeah, when it comes to signatures on a platform like that, if it's not coming directly from that artist's Whatnot like stream, I would be pretty cautious. I'd be really cautious on that kind of thing, because there's a ton of fake signatures out there. I think someone did say a comment like that. That is not an easy signature to copy either.
No, not at all. In fact, Dan Quintana actually made a post on his Instagram saying that because of this, he's now going to have a very particular custom-made stamp that he's going to stamp in association with his signature, which frankly, I don't really know how that affects like CGC, if they're going to like allow that to like, have an actual stamp on the book, but it was something that he was thinking about, that he wanted to protect his ability to sign books. So I thought that was pretty interesting.
There are Todd McFarlane stamped signed books from when he used to own a comic book store in the 90s, and CGC does grade those because they're aware, right? If the awareness is created, then they probably just let it fly. That part.
Yeah. Well, we're almost at the end of the show, but it wouldn't be a complete show unless we did a absolute Batman going to zero check-in. The users out there, the collectors, are starting to capitulate. This post from this Reddit forum saying Absolute Batman #1 CGC 98 has dropped in price to only $300. Would it drop even more? Ungraded copies are still going for $130 to $150. Ryan, what's going on with Absolute Batman? I mean, there's been a lot of sales in the $300 price point. Tell me about it.
I mean,
well, 288. Uh-oh.
Yeah, there have been quite a few below 200 lately. It's still going down, but it's still going to be worth more in a 9.8 at the end of this year than Dork #1. That is, I still believe in my heart of hearts that is true.
Have any popped yet?
No,
I've only seen.
Doesn't look like.
So
let me kind of. You guys continue on.
But yeah, I mean the climb in the census is still happening. It's going to happen. Like once it started that break, like it was going to keep falling, and we don't know where it's going to end. I think it's going to be worth more than $100 when it's done.
Yeah.
Is it going to be worth more than 200? Maybe. I think when the dust settles, it could fall between that 100 and 200 mark, but we'll see. Yeah.
Well, I got some breaking news for you guys and everyone in the
Hey,
chat.
we got it. It's the end of the year,
Exclusive.
though.
I know we got some
Exclusive.
time. We got some time.
Coming hot off the press from CGC's Pop Report, we actually have 2 Dork 199s on the census already.
That's like $1 billion.
16 of which
Retirement
16
book.
of which are 9.8s. Look at this 9.8 rate. There's 19 copies that have been sent in. 16 are 9.8. Uh-oh.
That's a crazy number.
Would
Like
those
2
two
already?
9.9s
9.9?
exist before PSA entered the market handing out
Did-
10?
I haven't
did
had
you
one
pop
in
on
hand.
eBay?
It's not a cardstock cover, is it?
No, it's not.
Yeah, I didn't.
Yeah,
I
are
didn't
there any
think
on
so.
eBay
Like,
yet?
that's a surprising number of 9.9s already.
Well, I did say, one of the interesting things when I was covering the Dork video is I made mention to the fact that, this is a book that got hot like immediately.
Oh, they're on
So-
eBay. $2.99 or best offer. Oh, it's a pre-sale. Damn it, I'm an idiot. Sorry.
Yeah, the pre-sales.
Oh, pre-sales, shmee sale. One thing that I made
Better
mention
start
though
smacking
in
the
that
bin
video,
bin.
There's a real one in hand. $255, 4 bids, 18 hours left.
send that in
exciting.
the private chat. We'll pull it up. Send it in the private chat.
All right, I
One
don't
thing
know
I
how to
did
do
say
that.
about copy paste.
You don't have a copy.
It's a different.
Come on,
different problem.
Grandpa.
No, it's fine. Computer phone. I don't know. It's fine. I'll figure it out.
All right. Well, the point I was trying to make is that, this was a book that got hot immediately upon release. So that, once it got hot, people were going to send it instantaneously in to be graded. So there wasn't going to be time for this book to have shelf wear or to get thrown in dollar bins. So you knew that the 9.8 rate was going to be really high, no matter what the print count was. So maybe that kind of explains why there's a decent amount of 9.9s that
They better
already
get
are
those
popping up.
9.9s to golden ASAP.
Yeah, but no, yeah. I mean, it'll be interesting to see how that all plays out. But I mean, I kind of joke every time I see one of those Absolute Batman posts. I paste it into the chat, and I'm like, this is my 57th alt or whatever, like me crapping on the book. But it's true. Like, I've seen quite a few people posting about those prices, which just means people are nervous about it dropping, and they keep asking, like, oh, is this going to keep happening? And that just, it drives the sales, because then people go, oh, maybe I should start selling mine now. And because you can just think about it, it's going to drop more. It will. And just, you can buy it back for cheaper later. You can play that game, and you can get it for a lower price at some other time if you want.
Hey, Ryan, am I not allowed to bid on this book?
I would say, well, I mean, I guess if you want to spend $300 in order to win $100
I'm not
from
shilling
me,
it. I'm gonna buy it if I win it.
I will be fine with that.
No, I'll stay out of this. I'm not bidding on it. But I like.
I'll tell you this much. This thing ends in 18 hours and 55 minutes. I know what my Monday video is going to be about. That's for sure.
I like that.
Sunday, 3 p.m. What a terror. Oh, wait, that's probably West Coast time, right?
Yeah,
it's on.
West Coast time for me.
That still seems like a shitty time to end an auction.
It's not too
But I mean,
bad.
already at
It's 6 p.m.
2:55,
East
not bad.
Coast.
Not bad.
Yeah. Well, let me give another quick shout out to Stanley Maloney, who had a second super chat for $9.99. I meant bi-weekly, but I'll pay for the weekly. Also, just a PSA, CGC has a witness signing with Larry Lieber. I'm not a shill, but he's 95, so it might be your last chance. Yeah, one thing that's interesting about the Larry Lieber signature is he's one of the only people I know that signs every letter not in cursive. You know what I mean? He does the whole thing.
Worst signature in comics.
Oh no,
it's 95. What do you want?
No, his older ones. It's straight text. It is my least favorite signature to see on a book. I do not like it.
By the way, whoever's selling that Dork one is just they owe us a cut now, because that just got a serious marketing hype from the podcast.
Is anyone in chat gonna bid?
The road to 1,000. I will be so excited. It's going to be a great video if that thing sells for
I want to bid on it
$1,000.
so bad, but it's just not. It's just I'm just doing it to do it. I don't want to do that.
That's some defensive bidding right there.
It is. It's just for fun. It's just to have a little fun. I'll go ahead and bid $750 on this damn thing just for fun. I'm not gonna though.
Yeah.
He's got Malibu money. What does he care?
Oh,
Absolutely. Well, fellas, I would say that we had another incredible show. I think probably our best show of all time, which is why if you guys haven't subscribed to the YouTube channel, the Ungraded Truth Podcast, link in the description, you probably should, because we're going to go to the moon with our show. You know, we've only been trending up. Every time we get better, you know, I don't fumble my words as much. So give us a sub, give us a like. Oh, also shout out to us. We had our most viewed video the other week. This one got 3.9. Let me say that again, 3,900 views.
Nice.
We went viral over here on the Ungraded Truth Podcast. Apparently, people don't like the fact that PSA raised their prices. So there you go. We also are on Spotify, guys. Link in the description here. Head on over to the Spotify. Give us a listen. Give us a review. We really, really appreciate it. Trying to get it popping over there. But gentlemen, been another great show. Appreciate you guys taking the time.
It's always
Any
fun hanging
final
out.
parting words? Yeah.
I don't know. Grading's a scam. You know, that's all.
Okay.
That's
Grading
the important
is a scam.
takeaway from this video.
Absolutely. Grading a scam. See y'all in the next time. Detective Comics set a record for 1.8 million. Nobody really cares.
Who are annoyed that people are asking them questions, is this book banned? That question didn't exist a year ago.
Somebody's submitting like 25 vintage books and getting 15 9.9s.
We always think, how can it ever get crazier? And then it always does.